Hi everybody, this is a talk about Visual Studio, which is basically just because everybody basically uses Visual Studio like really differently, I noticed, and so I just said I'd give a talk about a few things that I use every day that make Visual Studio for me a lot easier than, you know, other IDEs or other ways to develop. So Visual Studio, I'm sure everybody here knows, but Visual Studio is basically an IDE. IDE, bread and butter, most basic thing, is a text editor with a compiler built in that allows you to run your code, which is what Visual Studio is, but it also has a whole load of other stuff built in on top of it. So yeah, the point of this is basically so that you don't have somebody sitting behind you when you're using Visual Studio going, why is this person doing this, why are they so slow? It's like when you see your nan using the internet for the first time and you're like, just give me the mouse. So yes. So again, this talk, it's not gonna have everything the Visual Studio could possibly do. I actually ended up, like, even now as I'm doing this, I'm realizing there's a bunch of things that I could have done slides about, but I didn't because there's just so much. These are just things that I like to use day to day, basically. And I'm gonna start with code snippets. So code snippets, I don't know if anybody knows about these. Basically, you can type, usually they're 4-digit codes or sometimes a bit longer. And you basically type in like CTOR and then you just press the tab key twice, and what you'll get is it'll actually create a block, like it'll just create the default constructor for your class. And similar to that, you've got other ones for properties. If you want to make a load of properties, just type prop, mash the tab key twice, you'll end up with 2. It'll just create like an integer, and automatically you can just press tab again if you want to rename or change the type. All dead easy, just with its own little getter and setter in there. Just to save time, you can try finalies, try catch blocks and for eaches, and you can actually make your own as well. So some of them, it's funny, there are thousands of these, and some of them are like, I reckon, almost as long as typing the actual thing itself, and probably take a bit more time. But if you wanted to learn them all or write your own, it's dead simple to do. And they actually just, I use them all the time. The constructor, the property ones, the for each ones, things like that. It just saves you like indenting, hitting return, making sure you've got open and close brackets and all that. It just does all of that for you. So next thing we'll talk about is watches. So if you're debugging in Visual Studio and you want to see what the value of something is, you can just basically stick a watch on it. And what a watch will do is, if you're in the middle of debugging, it'll show you what the value of it is. It comes up in its own little window at the bottom of the screen, and it'll say, you might want to know what the value of a number is. And as you run through a loop, you might want to check the value. And every time it updates, as you debug and you're going through, you'll see the number update at the bottom, and it's dead easy to follow. I find them quite handy. But if you're trying to watch a few things at once, or if say there's a few variables that you're concerned about at various times, they can pile up really quickly and you can end up with a load of them, and it can actually be harder to tell what's going on, I find. Which is why I often use Quick Watch, which is a feature that you can basically, so here I've got this variable which is basically like a 6-part link query. And it dead is it returns a boolean, but this is fake, by the way. No one should ever actually do this. Please break these up if you ever find yourself doing this. It's basically find the sites where the site ID is divisible by 3, which are of type user site, ordered by the site name reversed, and check to see if that contains that particular site. But say for instance, if I was debugging this and I'm coming to it and I realise that I'm not actually getting the result that I want out of it, and I can't really figure out why, because as far as I know, what's going in is right, but I'm not getting the right result. What you can actually do is you can actually take just a section of it and you can just highlight that, and then you can right click and select Quick Watch, and Quick Watch will just open in a new window for you, a brand new, it'll just show you what the value evaluates to, and then using that you can basically try and use that to figure out what's actually going wrong. So there's an example I had yesterday where I was just reading from the DB, and I noticed that when I tried to run it, it was basically bombing out saying that there was an invalid cast when I was coming from the DB. And when I looked at the DB, I was like, okay, not sure which one of these it is, because they all seem to be returning something that I think looks right. So what you can do is, what you see here is actually the Quick Watch window. So all I've done here is just highlight this, press Shift and F9 or right click and go Quick Watch, and it'll evaluate it right in here. So then all I need to do is just basically move through each of these to see which one is the offending one. And sure enough, there I found it. Trying to cast this to a bool, you can see that I get the invalid cast exception, and I can get it in there. So that's my issue. So what I could do, so I looked at the DB at this point and I said, okay, well, if you look at the return type, it's not actually a boolean, it's actually a tiny int. So I went, okay, so my first thing was, okay, small int, I'll try short, try long, try a few different things. None of those worked until eventually I realized that byte would give me a value back. And I was able to do all this within Visual Studio without ever having to stop. And then following that, all I need to do then is just stop the solution and change the value. But you can figure it all out without having to stop and rerun the solution every time. And I know the immediate window can do a lot of this for you as well, because you can evaluate things in the immediate window. But I've noticed that sometimes if you evaluate certain things in the immediate window and it throws an exception, it can sometimes lose your place in the code and you have to rerun. But yes, and the keyboard shortcut for that is Shift and F9 if you want to do it quickly. So literally just highlight a section or something and then press Shift and F9. And go to all. This is something which anybody who's ever sat beside me will know that I use this all the time. Dan McNulty taught me this one actually, and from the moment he taught it to me, I use it constantly. It basically, you press Control and comma and you can go to just about anything. If you know the name of a property on an object, if you know the name of the file, if you know the name of the class, if you know the name of the method, you can go to any of those just from Control and comma, and it populates the list as you start to type. I actually might be able to give like a quick demo of this in Visual Studio because I love this feature and I use it all the time. So I'm in the employee service right now. So if I want to go to somewhere else, like say I want to go to the contractors controller, all I have to do is just start typing contractors, and you'll see like a list of things here and just double click and I'm in it. And super handy. Just being able to, and then if you wanted to find like say a method within the contractors controller, like it's probably something called get contractors. Okay, so there in the contractor repository, I get one. There's one in the contractor service. I can see the ones in the interfaces as well. So just from that, if I want to see, okay, where can I get all the contractors? Here's all my options just straight away if they're named, in a sort of a sensible manner. So that's go to all, and I would recommend of everything else I use. This is the thing I use the most because it just makes navigation of the solution so much quicker. You don't need to have a million things open or the Solution Explorer open all the time. As long as you know what you're looking for is called, you can find it. So, next thing, conditional breakpoints. So, if you're breaking on something every time, say you've got like a for loop with 100 sites in it, and you're only concerned about one particular site, which is an offending site, and something's going wrong with it, and you don't need to sit there and tab, press F5 over and over and over again until you get the one you want, because you can actually put conditions on breakpoints themselves. So you can just right click the breakpoint, go for conditions, and in this one here, say if I was only concerned with a particular shared pre-enrollment user, I can just literally specify with a statement just to say shared pre-enrollment to user ID and then have it equal that. And then the only time that breakpoint will actually stop there is when that condition is met. So I use this occasionally when, like that, you've got like a big for loop and you want to just find specific details or a specific case. And yes, well, there's conditional breakpoints. Code lens is something that I would love to be able to show you from our own solutions what Code Lens does, but I can't because it's not supported in Mercurial at the minute. But what Code Lens basically does is Code Lens is like your source control integrated into Visual Studio. So I'm not sure if you can see that screenshot that well, but basically what it says is it's the name of a method and it has whoever had the most recent commit against it and how long ago that commit was made. You can literally mouse over it and then you can see how many commits were made against it within the last period of time. And you can see who they were made by. Again, with Code Lens, you can just click into that. You can see what the commit messages are. I've used it before. In my last place, we had it with Git, and it's just so handy because there's no more of this, like right-click, go to the file, look at the history, scroll through until you find the actual bit of the file that you actually want to see has changed. This is literally all. It's down to like method level. You can do it on like classes or methods or everything. It's so handy. Not available for Mercurial, but apparently we're going to have it when we go to TFS. It's all going to work just perfectly straight out the box. And I tried to look up Code Lens on Mercurial and I found this. This was the first result. So I don't know what it's asking, but nobody's answered it. So yeah, next thing, the drop down bar in the top right corner. So I looked online for the name for this and I couldn't find it anywhere. I don't know what it's called. I don't know what you could potentially call it, but basically say you're in like a massive class, like for instance, I've taken the employee service as an example here. And you've got like there's a ton of methods, there's a ton of properties. This drop-down list will actually give you like an alphabetized list of everything that's in the file that's at like the class level. So all the class level variables, all the method names, all that, and again, all alphabetical. So I use it all the time for stuff like if I want to, say if I wanted to save the employee, or here, if I wanted to get something about an employee, because it's alphabetical, I can see all the gets straight away, and I know, okay, does that exist? And if it does exist, okay, just double click on it, and you can go straight to it. Dead handy. Extract method. So this is, if you've written a block of code within another method and you kind of go, this could be its own method by itself, I could reuse this somewhere else, or it just doesn't really need to be in here, and you can literally just take the block of code you've just written and extract it into like a new method, and the IDE will just do this for you. So as you can see here, I'm basically in the example, I don't know how well you can read it, but it's basically, if the length of the username is above a certain amount, check if it contains the word registration, then replace that word, and then reassign it back into my shared pre-enrollment user object. So all it is a bit of text manipulation, but again, I'm like, okay, well this is the sort of thing I might want to do multiple times, so I could put it into its own method. And literally all you need to do is just right click it, and then there's the quick actions, the very top thing, the one with the big bright light bulb, and extract method is there. And what it'll do is it'll pop it into its own method, replace where it was in the original method with a call to your new method, and it opens up the replace functionality straight away, so you just start typing and you can rename your method. And again, yeah, dead handy. Just saves time as well. And also, the thing is, you can write, if you wanted to, you could write everything all in one method, and then when you know it all works, just extract everything into its own method, and I'm sure it would be fine.
You can do that with classes and interfaces as well.
Can you? Oh yeah, true actually. I didn't think to include that, but yep. Control RM is the shortcut for that. So then, yeah, quick actions, refactoring. So this is the other one where, say if you know, quick actions and refactorings are basically like where the IDE will suggest things to you that you might, say for instance, in my case here, the example I'm giving is, I know that this enum exists, but at the minute, the class that I'm in doesn't actually have a reference to where that enum is. So I can just type the name of the enum, I know that's correct, but straight away I'll get underlined with this little red thing to say, oh, this isn't quite right. So if I mouse over it, I'm given the option to just, the top option there is basically just tells me that it's going to include the using at the top of the file, and that means I don't have to specify it explicitly, and then anywhere else I've used it, I can just use it from then on because you're including the using. And I do this all the time because it just, again, it saves you having to go to actually the top of the file and actually write the usings yourself, and it'll just do them for you. So there's other things, yeah, there's like, so for instance there you can even see that it'll offer to actually specify it explicitly as well. So it'll offer to either use the using or tell you that you can actually just specify the namespace with the class name, or the enum name in this case. And, or you can actually just use it, say if you had like a method that you knew you wanted to do something, you could just write the method as if you were calling it. So like, write as in, this dot blah, and then it'll tell you, oh, this method doesn't exist, and you can tell it to generate that method. It'll be empty, but it'll have the right return type and stuff. So, next thing, lightweight solution load. Basically, we've all had the problem where you load up MSite or you load up any of the solutions and it takes forever to actually load because it's got 100 things. You only want to use one of those in this particular instance when you're running it. So what lightweight solution load will do is it basically skips loading everything, and it'll tell what was the most recent thing that you had open. And usually it's like your startup project, and then it'll only load that and its dependencies. And then as you sort of, go through, say you want to get something out of a database project, or say you want to add an extra startup project to it because you want to debug a service or something, you'll get those, and as you add those, it'll load them as and when you need them. It doesn't need to do it all at once. So for the 90% of the code base that you're not using isn't actually loaded, and it saves so much time, startup, so much time. I would say there's a few niggles about lightweight solution load, because certain things, for instance, the current version of Visual Studio 2017, it seems to break find all. If you search for the entire solution while you've got lightweight solution on, it doesn't search anywhere near the entire solution. It searches barely anything. But if you search current project, it will search for the whole project if the project is loaded. So yeah, there's that. It's really easy to set up. Basically all you need to do is just right click the solution, and it's right at the bottom of the list to say enable or disable lightweight solution load. Also, if you have a solution that's particularly heavy on startup, the IDE will actually suggest to you, do you want to switch this on? It's just a thing of clicking yes. So, and then Intellisense, which I'm sure this is the thing that we all use all the time. It's dead handy. It's basically means that you never have to write anything but new variables ever again. It will just do everything for you. It'll suggest to you what it is you want to use. If you've already got a variable, it can complete the name of it for you if you've used it before. You mouse over things, it'll give you quick information about them. basically, yeah, so here you can see that I can see all of the properties that are on my user object just using Intellisense. I don't have to actually go into the user object, into the file and see what's there. I can just mouse through this. I can just scroll up and down through it. And sometimes it doesn't pop up, so the keyboard for it, shortcut is Control and Space. And this is one of the other things I use all the time, which is, it's part of Intellisense, but you can actually check the overloads of methods just using it. So if you know a method exists, but you don't know if the particular version of it that you want is there, you can actually just write the method like that, and just stick your cursor in between the two, and then use Intellisense in between the two brackets, and then use Intellisense to tell whether or not the version that you want actually exists, or just how to use it. And again, like that, the Intellisense actually comes up with all the information, like, you know, a little blurb of what it does, and the names of the objects, everything. And as you start to type the parameters in, it'll, you know, tell you which ones are coming next, and etc. It's so handy. And the other thing it does a lot is crash. So that is the end of the me talking bit, and this is the fun interactive bit, where basically I'm going to put keyboard shortcuts up on the board, and if the first person that I hear shouting and saying that what that keyboard shortcut does, I'm going to throw sweets at you. Straight at the shoulder. Okay, so let's get cracking. So nobody knows. That's collapse all methods. So basically that'll just collapse everything within a file. If you've got a big massive file, I do it all the time in TypeScript, where again I only care about two particular methods and I'm scrolling between them. Just collapse all the other ones. Really? Yeah, but I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. I only ever do it, I never undo it. But okay. Alright, Alex first. Yes, that's undo. So next one. Well, who said comment first? I think I heard it, yeah. Cool. Yes, so it's comment selection. So highlight a selection, press Control and K, then press Control and C, and it'll just comment it out for you. And next one.
Quick watch.
Yeah, Alan first again. Yes, quick watch. I heard select all first again. Jeez, I'm smashing it. Control and comma.
Quick search.
Go to all.
Yeah, that's what it's called. I'll give you one each, because there you're both right. So.
You got that on file.
Right.
Insert breakpoint.
Nope. Stop what?
Build.
Yeah.
Mine now. Can't stop them.
Yeah, I'll cancel the bills.
Refresh. Debug.
I'll give it a 10J, because it's, you know, run, deploy, start, whichever sort of solution you have at the time. This one? Yep. Extract into method, so or refactor into method. Yeah.
I've never seen that answer like
On the ball. I think this is the last. So yeah. Yep. Yeah, Sean Devine. And F11 while debugging. Step into, or Mike first. And that's it. That's the end of my presentation on Visual Studio. I hope some or any of this you might not have seen before, and it will make your life a bit easier. So.